In the battle for honesty on a day-to-day basis, we run into a unique situation in society. We run into a unique situation in your relationship and in the world as a whole. And I need you to hear this one phrase loud and clear, and then we'll break it down a little bit. But I need you to hear this. Your truth doesn't matter. Your truth doesn't matter. You see, there's many times in my relationship that I believed with wholeheartedly that I was in the right, that I had the right solution, the right idea, the right fix to the problem. I believed a lot of times that I was being truthful to myself, that I was being truthful to others because I had to, because I didn't want to feel shame and guilt. So I had to show up and be like, yeah, this is the truth. This is what I believe, even if I didn't. And so I need you to understand that everybody's truth is based in a perspective and a perception. My perception was, hey, I'm honest. I wasn't. I was a liar. My perception was like, hey, I'm faithful to Kayla. I wasn't. I was a cheater. My perception was, hey, I am in love with other women. I wasn't, because I used them. So you need to understand that in that moment, my truth didn't matter. Why? Because it wasn't based on anything real. It wasn't based on anything actually true. You're like, okay, well, I get that because you were lying. I get that because you were cheating. I get that. But what about me? What about my truth when I'm saying this? Okay, you need to understand your truth doesn't matter. You're like, whoa, like, why are you saying that? Because truth is subjective to your perspective, to your perception. You see, many of you have your own truth right now. You have your own perception of me. You have your own perception of your reality. You have your own perception of your relationship. You have different truths and different beliefs that you've been brought up with that have shaped and molded your identity, your personality, that have shaped the direction of how you're actually living, how you're moving, how you're growing forward. And you've been brought up in a different level, in a different state of saying, hey, this is my truth, so this is what I believe. The hard part is that's your reality, that's your perception, versus like someone else might have a completely different perception. For you, you're going to internalize and view things one way. For someone else, they're going to internalize and view things another way. You need to understand your truth doesn't matter. And you're like, okay, I get it. Why are you beating this point? Because I need you to understand that your truth is often going to be misleading inside of the toxic relationship. He will have his own truth. He will have his truth that makes your truth feel irrelevant. You will have your truth that will make you feel confused. You will have your truth that you want to make sure is justified or admitted by him so that you can have closure. There's many different levels and perspectives of this, but I need you to understand one simple thing. Your truth doesn't matter. You're like, okay, I hear it. Now, what does matter then? If it's not my truth, then what actually matters? Simple word, just the facts. You're like, what? That's it? Yeah, the facts. The facts matter more than the truth because the facts are what truth is built on. You're like, okay, but then my truth does matter because it's built on facts. Is it? Because oftentimes you'll start believing a certain reality. You'll start telling yourself different stories to stay in a toxic relationship. You'll start to say different things of like, oh, well, this is just who I am. This is just how I have to be. This is just how marriages work. I just didn't realize it's going to take so much effort. Like it's just the communication issue. We just have a communication problem. We'll get it fixed. We'll go to therapy sometime. Like you're going to have different stories that you tell yourself. You're going to have different things you try to believe to justify being in the toxic relationship. You're going to see this happen over and over and over again. So when I say your truth doesn't matter, I need you to understand this is like a frame shake of like, hey, wait a second. Let's pause and let's take a look at my reality. Is it actually true? This part's true. This part's true. This part's true. No facts, no facts, no facts. Not true. Okay, we need to take a look at that because otherwise it's so easy for you to believe an alternate version of reality. Why? Because he started to train you on this early on. He started to train you to believe his version of reality. He started to train you to believe his gaslighting view of you. And so over a period of time, you start to believe and you start to think, okay, maybe this is what is actually true. But is it really? Because what you're believing is not based on facts. It's fiction. It's a false reality. It's not something that's real. Narcissist sells you into a false reality. Sells you into a fantasy. This is why I have the first book that we even published, the journal. Fantasy to Reality. You can get this on Amazon. You can get this on our website, rawmotivations.com/books. That and the gratitude one. But we had to be able to start breaking people out of the fantasy. because we realized that people were stuck in a fantasy. They were stuck in an idealized idea of this person. Many of you, as you've gotten out of the relationship, you don't miss the person. You don't miss the abuse that he did to you. You miss the feeling of actually having a relationship. You miss the feeling of having a connected person. You miss the feeling of having love as he was love bombing you early on. It's not because you missed the abuse. You're like, man, I really wish I could get some good old gaslighting right now. Like, that would be amazing. That's what I miss. You don't miss that stuff. You miss the fantasy that's been sold to you. The hard thing is he sells it to you. And then after he sells it to you over a period of time, you sell it to yourself. Like, he has to sell you a version of reality that says, hey, this is who we're going to be. This is how we're going to be connected, blah, blah, blah. All this kind of stuff to make you feel and act and be a certain way. But then over a period of time, you have to start believing it too. So you have to sell yourself on that piece of truth. You're like, oh, well, yeah, this did happen, so maybe it is me. Yeah, this did happen, so maybe he does care. And all these things, you start selling yourself over and over and over again. But what do we come back to? We come back to the simple phrase that we started off with, understanding your truth does not matter. Still feels weird, huh? Your truth does not matter. The only thing that matters is the facts. The only thing. Because if we put your truth and his truth up against each other, there's going to be this clash. And we're never going to get a resolution. I see this all the time. If I meet with different couples, there's oftentimes arguments that come up where there's no resolution. Sometimes it has to get really clear, and I have to be like, okay, let's break this down. She said you did X, Y, and Z. Did you do X, Y, and Z? Well, no, I was doing this, but then this happened. Okay, stop. Did you do X, Y, and Z? Well, she said that I was going to do it, but then I had this come up, and okay, stop. She said you did X, Y, and Z. Did you do X, Y, and Z? Yes or no? Well, no. Yes or no? Yes, I did X, Y, and Z. Okay. Now we can actually work on something because we actually have some factual evidence that you both agree on. But if you don't agree on it, then it's not ever going to work. And the reason why people typically don't agree on it is because they're bringing their truth to the table, saying like, well, this happened, well, this happened, well, this happened, well, this happened. Who cares? At the end of the day, if he's not showing up honest, vulnerable, and showing consistent change, you should leave his ass. Because you need to understand, if there is not evidence supporting your reality, you're not believing reality. You're believing fiction. You're believing fantasy. You are not living in truth. Because your truth doesn't matter because it's based on your feelings. It's based on your fantasy. Over and over and over again, we will see this happen. So as you hear this today, what's coming up for you? Like, what are you hearing me say? It's a popular question I'll ask people in coaching situations where we'll talk through stuff. I'll say different things, and I'll be like, what do you hear me say? Because I want to know what is actually landing for you, what's actually resonating. Inside of all of this, you need to understand truth is great, truth is wonderful, but truth will not set you free if it's not based on facts. Oftentimes, your truth is so tainted with your own perspective, your own perception of reality. Like, it leaves you confused, wondering, like, what am I supposed to do? How am I supposed to act? How am I supposed to live? What's supposed to go on? I get it. But your truth has to be based in facts. That is the only thing that can actually set you free. That is the only thing that can actually liberate you from the toxic relationship. Understanding that your truth doesn't matter. Bring this to the end of the relationship when you're trying to prove your point. When you're trying to prove, well, you are a narcissist. When you're trying to prove, well, you did cheat on me, and he's never admitting it. You will get so wrapped up. I see people that do this where they want to go on revenge sprees, where they want to go on like justifying stuff, where they want to go on smear campaigns to try to make sure everybody knows he's this awful person. Guess what? Your truth doesn't matter. It's not going to matter to him. It's not going to hurt him. It's not going to affect him. All it's going to do is make you look like a bitter person that actually can't heal. You're like, well, that seems rude. I just want to warn people. Okay? You can try to warn the next supply, but oftentimes when you try to warn the next supply, he's already got to them. He's already conditioned them to block you, to believe his version of reality. His truth is put on them versus the facts of the situation, because he's not going to tell them the facts. Sometimes you have to let go of a lot of pieces, and sometimes it's hard for people because oftentimes ego gets wrapped up in this. I'm like, well, I lost. I don't want to lose. Well, like this happened and I don't want to admit to this happened. Like sometimes you have to lose in order to actually win. Like sometimes you have to release and let go of like, well, I want to be right and make sure that he knows that I'm right. He doesn't care that you're right because he doesn't operate in your version of reality. Stop trying to convince him. Stop wasting your breath on crazy. Start focusing on you, your growth, your development. That's the only thing that we can work on. I get it. You're struggling. You're dealing with it. But don't play victim anymore by letting him control you. Take back your power. Take back control of your life today. Because if you don't, you will continue to be in this victim cycle over and over and over again, letting him control you with his truth versus the facts of reality that you're not going to convince him of. Instead, move forward in your growth, in your development. If I can be a part of this, if I can help you, then please go to rawmotivations.com/breakthrough to watch a short presentation of how I help partner with people on a day-to-day basis to help liberate you mentally and emotionally from the toxic abuse that you're suffering in.